Alright, hello everyone. My name is Disc, and in this video we are looking at another Tazavesh Streets of Wonder 23. I guess I wouldn't like to do the same video back to back in a week, but that's kind of just what has happened. This is a 23, my other video is going to be a 24, but this one played a lot better, and I think when it comes to trying to give examples and explain things through videos, I kind of would just rather do that on top of a clean run, although I think analyzing mistakes is good too. I think the point of these is to teach the right way to do something, and that just looks better over a key that's played well. Okay, so anyway, we are Fortified this week, Bolstering, Quaking, and Shrouded. So I don't think it's that big of a problem. Quaking I think is always kind of annoying, but we have instant cast spells we can place on that cast timer, like Death or Solace or Shield. So you always want to try and work those in as Quaking is going off. It's never a good idea to find zero output as Disc. But anyway, this is a total pug, but again it went pretty well. And I'm just looking at my DPS, trying to analyze where my PI is going to go. And based off spec, I'm leaning towards Warlock. And I think based on gear and experience, I'm also leaning towards Warlock. And to be honest, I forget how this key went, so we're going to watch this together, and I'm going to try and analyze it real time. Just as some backstage stuff. Sometimes I do go back and edit voiceovers, like for a boss, if I realize I didn't do a boss too well. Let's see if I can get it all in one go. Alright, so this first trash pull really does set the pace, and we are Fortified. They hurt pretty bad. It's a full send moment. So I'm watching for the Warlock. I ramp with Atonements, and I place my Spectrometer on Zomaz. You'll see his nameplate sparkles. That's a weak aura. I highlight the strongest, healthiest mob per pack, per dungeon. Really helps you put your Spectrometer and Schism on the best target. So here we have Boon. I pre-walled just because it's imperative that you live. And I had regular 15-second atonements beforehand. And I really didn't even need to break from Boon to re-atone. Everyone was healthy. So there's one of my signature moves. I didn't want to use Pain Sup, and I didn't want to use Fiend. I didn't want to use Rapture, so I opted for Barrier. That's usually a safe drop. And then the Mage was sitting way outside of it. So Grip has no cooldown. You can Barrier and Grip in an ally. I think it's really pro. So this is where I drop Pain Sup. Often I use that 8-second window just to get dots out. I also use it to Schism and Mindseer. So it's a really nice 8 seconds where you can just DPS. That's kind of how I look at it. So a lot of damage is going out here. I'm looking at my health bars. I feel like more damage is going out than I was expecting because we have a lot of health missing. But anyway, going into a final Schism for this pull. In a group of 4, definitely want a Mindseer. And the best way to use Schism is if you don't have to break from it. So, for example, I'll give the tank an atonement right before I Schism so that he is getting healed and I can just DPS. Alright, so setting up for next pull, I'm glancing at my spells. Boon is obviously the play. And we also have PI. But it does not look like the Warlock is ready. So I think I go to Warrior. So waiting for these guys to enter combat. Oh. Okay, so I PI'd the Frost Mage. Not the best move. But I'm setting up for Boon, getting all my dots out as my opener. You want to purge that beneficial off. Schism and Boon. And we are missing quite a bit of help in the group, so I blast Radiance Blast late. One of the selling points of a late Radiance is that exiting Boon, there are still pretty active atonements in the group, so there's no like gap in output. This pull is just about dead. I use Fade a lot for its aggro range reduction. To avoid pulling the rest of this room, I kind of wanted to use that space momentarily, and Fade will let you kind of sneak over. And I think we go into this 3-pack next if I remember right. Yep. It's always nice to lead with a Purge. Getting my dots out. It's always nice to spread the final dot with a Penance. And it's always best to put your Schism on your Spectrometer. So this is a Schism Boon, Nova Blast. And that was a perfect Boon. We did not miss any cooldown reduction. Full damage. Looking at that, a better play would have been to Penance the mob that's about dead. So he would spread his dot to the healthier one. It's a small detail, but that's how I try and play Penance. Okay, what do I do here? We have Fiend. Yeah, okay, so I use Fiend. I ramped with all my dots. P.I. the Warrior this time because I saw how well he was doing. And after all my dots are out, I Schismed and Mind Seared. So that's what you want to do when Fiend's out. You want to ramp with all your dots, atone the tank, and then Schism Mind Sear. And that's a really good Fiend rotation. Always a good idea to throw in a Dispel as Quaking's going off, and that's what I did right there. And I think I gripped the Mage out of something. Have to replay it. I think I had really good grip play this round, so let's see how that goes. So I would say the tank is chaining, unfortunately, because we're bolstering. So I think all that was like majorly bolstered. Okay, so we had a death from the Warrior. He stood in the beam. He had a 2-stack. I could have dropped a cooldown, but I'm not going to do that for a silly mistake like that. But I am low mana, so I'm noticing that's the only problem at this moment. Looks like I threw a mana potion, then I did Arcane Torrent, so that's kind of my mana regen buttons. I don't want to throw a cooldown because I think we're going into the mini-boss. So, shouldn't be a problem, but full health mini-boss, 0% mana, it's just something you got to, I would say, watch out for as a tank. But we have Boon, which is free mana, so I Atonement ramp leading with a Shadow Mend, atoning the tank very last. Schism and Boon. And you'll notice that Boon was very late. The damage had actually already stopped going out. With Discipline and most of our cooldowns, the more you can delay them, the better. And right there, he had a 6-stack Dispel, but I just healed through it for the start of it and Dispelled on the back half. And there goes a PI into the Mage again. Ooh. Yeah, so... Okay, good. At least he had Icy Veins back. I knew I had about one more round before boss, so even though no one else was popping, I don't know, looking at it now, it might have been hasty. I could have given it to the Warlock there. But I just wanted to dump PI one more time before boss. And a Frost Mage is kind of always in their cooldown window. Ouch. So we got one more Blood Siphon. I'm not going to drop a cooldown. Thankfully we have a Penance proc. Love those. So drinking, and I thought this little carriage here was LOS. I was testing it, to be honest. So it's not not LOS. So this guy is fortified. He's considered trash. So in other words, it takes a while. So I do want to go ahead and throw Shadow Fiend to get that guy rolling. Wouldn't hurt to have a little extra damage. So I Shadow Fiend and Schism, and then just pump as much as I can. Ouch. So we were kind of forced to be in the open there. Thankfully we had barrier, no deaths, and that cast went off. So that's a really good example where Mass Dispel can help you out. Yeah, I guess the only downside of those dome defensives is it's a very viable major defensive for me, but it demands the party to play it, and no one did there, I don't think, except like maybe the warrior. Yeah, tried to grip the mage, it looked like, to safety. I was not quick enough. I think you should always practice LOSing that. It's a good skill to practice. It's not hard. It shouldn't really lower your DPS any if you're good. But here we go, boss. So I'm trying something new. I open right away with Schism and boom. So with Lust we get a Nova Blast rotation. And I'm waiting for after the mechanic to drop PI. A Warlock's window is longer than 20 seconds, so waiting doesn't really hurt. But I was experimenting there. In my other streets this week, I waited to Schism and Boon until after the mechanic, but then I thought, you know what? All that really matters is I have 9 to 10 seconds to cover my Schism. And yeah, you can totally get around it if you drop it as your first spell. There's a trick, I'm not sure if it does anything to be honest, but you can grip that targeted guy out. And defensively there, since I was expecting group-wide damage, I did Rapture. I think it really helped. Got a lot of value off of it. And I've said this before too, I use Grid 2 to monitor my absorb values. So if you play that back, or you know, anywhere in the key to be honest, you see a darker blue value on the bars. That's the shield representation. And I just think it's much easier to read when it also grows from left to right, just like a health bar does. And Grid 2 is the only add-on that will let you show it that way. So as Discipline, I think it's paramount that you maximize your Rapture and see where low shields are. So you can prioritize your globals. Like for example, it's really easy to see if a Rapture landed as a crit or not. And crit is the largest value you can get on a cast. So if a shield didn't crit, you can give them another global. Or if a shield is depleted, you can easily see that and prioritize a global there. You just gotta know where your absorbs are, mainly for that spell. So Grid 2. And I link my profile, you can go get it. Alright, so now we have this Fortified mini-boss, and I have all my spells with Ruby, so we are going to do a double cooldown dump. Certainly don't need the healing, but we need to kill this guy sooner rather than later. So Shadow Fiend, Schism, Boon, Nova Blast, pumping as much damage as possible. And you'll see the tank had a blue border there. That's a weak aura I've set up for all my notable dispels. I just like to see it as a border, and it's really easy to make that weak aura. It's just a spell ID. Yeah, mini boss out of the way. He was fortified. Needed to cut down the time on that as much as possible. Okay, so here I think we had a whoopsie doopsie, but you want to watch for if 2 breaths get cast at the same time, like right here. that is the best time to throw in a defensive. So we had a double breath coming. I saw it on the cast bars, and I paints up. And so I wasn't expecting another double. Okay, but we had one. And I think if you replay it, I laid barrier very as a reaction, which is never the best play to. I laid it as a reaction, which is never the best way to play disc. But I think if you replay it, I did lay it before the breaths went off. So my job was taken care of. You'll notice the tank had 2 major defensives and didn't use either. So with these guys fortified, double lava breath. Fuck, I can't speak. He needed to play a defensive. I did my job laying barrier. On the first double, I had paints up. So that was on the tank. But it was not a complete wipe. You always want to try and chain a pull like this. In reality, we did not lose much time there. A lot less than a full wipe. So anyway, replay that, check me. I think I laid barrier just in time. It's just he failed to play his button. So yeah, double breaths, bad. He died to 2 of them without popping a cooldown. So I'm just perched up here like a little cat, just waiting to see what happens. So this is a boon pull. We want to open with all of our dots. Warlock queued, so I throw PI on him. Getting all my dots out, getting atonements out, schism, and boon. For a pack like this, Nova Blast. Really all that's going on is we're dodging frontals and staying stacked. Okay, what do I do now? I get dots on the healthier mobs. He got double pounced. That's an ouch. Yeah, I go into a Rapture. Maybe not necessary because we did have that regen. But we have Shadow Fiend also, so I'm going to get that guy out, followed by a Schism. As long as a Shadow Fiend can get his full 15 seconds, I don't think there's ever a bad time to use it. You just want that thing rolling always. And then this guy, I was confused. Where the hell did he come from? But that charge can hit anyone in the way. Don't stand in line of it. You can't dodge it unless you're on the pedestal. And looking back at that pull, I definitely should have PI'd the bear. So a little insight into how I think. Give me a second here. So Nova Blast. This guy is fortified. He has a lot of health. Takes a lot of time. So I boon. So I'm getting up here, anticipating the mage getting targeted. I was going to grip him up there to try and like avoid the damage, but maybe a tricky idea since we're quaking right now. Go tiger. I forget what happens here. So I have no cooldowns. It looks like PI is almost up though. I think this is a PI drop because it's a medium thick size pull. And I think the Warlock is going to pop. That's what I'm anticipating. Yeah, there he is. So I'm waiting for all 3 to get gathered before I toss out the PI. Oh, and the Warlock popped, but he like disengaged to go in the other room, which is weird. But anyway, here he is. He's back in range. Oh, I PI'd the warrior. Yeah, so I was going to PI the lock, but he wasn't here, so PI goes to the warrior, who's honestly on the top of the overall right now, so he's a pretty valid PI target. And yeah, I'd have to replay it. I'm not gonna. I don't think it was a fully optimized PI on the warrior. It might have been. But there I tried to save the Warlock. Always play with party nameplates. It's the best way to maximize your grip. So see, like right there, he's standing in the frontal again, but grip was down. I always try and grip people out of the way of the frontal. I just did not react in time and he still got hit. But that's on him, I tried it. Always want to refresh your files before a boss. And then this is where I try something different too. I drop Schism Boon right at the top of the pull, seeing if I could get full value or not before the mechanic. And you can't. So never throw Schism Boon right at the top. You're going to lose a lot of value. The Eruption didn't even hit, felt really bad. You can use a feather right there. I don't think you have to if you position yourself right. But I'd rather just play defensive and get out of there quicker. Getting one last Schism in, it looks like. Probably should have played Schism earlier or held. I think I lost about a second on it there. So have a weak aura there to show where the dispels are. I always prioritize a melee, but thankfully we have our Warlock jumping in with a pro second dispel. So PI's up. Why am I not playing it? Okay, so I definitely dropped a PI, that's embarrassing. I'm holding Shadow Fiend? Like, what's going on here? I think I was just confused. I think the Warlock threw me off with his Dispel. I wasn't expecting that. I usually have to carry the whole group. I was going to Mass Dispel that, but we have that individual, which is nice. Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah, so you always want to fade there to not be on the aggro table. And I think I'm prepping for Boon, but I'm waiting for the grip-in mechanic. Okay, so I also have PI. I think at this point I'm watching for the warrior to pop. There he goes. And gave him a super fat PI. And I'm prepping for Boon. You want to atone the tank last. Schism, and then Boon. This is Nova Nova Blast. You want to land every global possible. And with the right amount of haste, you get an extra global at the end, so you always want to make sure you get that last Nova. Yep, just rolling Schism as much as possible, getting as much DPS as possible. Looks like I had a, looks like I went ahead and walled there. Non-tyrannical boss, down, not a problem. Moving on. So glancing at the avoidable damage, the warrior's not doing great. The tank and the warlock, it's not great either. You always want to pay attention to that. Alright, so with this mini boss, we have 2 ranged standing on the outside. You only need 1 ranged on the outside, just for the record. But I don't have any cooldown, so we're just going to pump as much natural DPS as possible. And if you pay close attention to my rotation there, I did not refresh my dot until all my primary spells were on cooldown. So it's windows like that where you want to refresh an atonement or refresh a dot is when you don't have anything else to cast. So you always want to prioritize, if you can, a Solace, Penance, Mind Blast, Death before a dot. And the way, I think they call it Pandemic, is you have a 5-second grace window. So usually within a 5-second window like that, you can find a moment where everything else is on cooldown first. And yeah, that's just how you want to do it if you want to maximize your output. Okay, last streets I did, this pull got out of control. So let's see what we do here. Always want to feather a tank there. Refresh a shield and atonement. Very last thing. And we have all spells. So let's see how this goes. Getting some active atonement outside the room, just for good measure. I fade as they're coming out. You always want to open with dots. Oh yeah, and so this pull, I PI'd the tank, which is a very rare occurrence. But when they're incarn and it's a super big pull like this, it's often the right play. And if you look at the damage meters, he's really fucking them up. So that was a Schism Boon, Nova Nova Blast. And I think that was a really good grip to save the Warlock there of the frontal and into the barrier. And yeah, barrier usually goes on the backside of Boon, just like that. Another valid play is a Pain Sup on the backside of Boon. But I held Pain Sup for right there. And for this pull, I opened with all my dots, Shadow Fiend, Schism, Seer, which is a really standard rotation for a Shadow Fiend pull. When you have all your dots out, plus Shadow Fiend, plus Schism, plus Seer, it's a substantial amount of healing, and it's definitely enough for a tank, as long as he's atoned. We have some health chunk in here. They're bolstered. Schism, drop that penance proc. And when it's a 2-target cleave like this, I don't really mind Seer anymore. I favor Smite. I really only Seer for a pack of 3+. And even with the 3-pack, I sometimes single target. Okay, so no PI yet. I think I do want to boon this first round of fan mail and money order. And you'll see I've edited my big wigs notifications to just have those 2 spells. So I open with regular atonements and healing, go into a Schism Boon, blast Radiance Blast early to be defensive, and we're set up for the eruption to go off after the money order. So yeah, that's a really good example of delaying a spell. I favored my regular healing first. Booned late. We have no money order here, but we do have Schism, so regular healing, regular atonements, Schism, DPS. So here's PI. I think I got PI just a moment ago. Okay, we're not going to talk about this. And for this, yeah, so the only spell I had was Rapture. Yikes. Okay, so if you replay that, we had Quaking at the worst time. I had no barrier. All I had was Rapture, but that should be plenty to get through a money order. But then we had Quaking too, so what I opted to do, you don't see it too often, but you can spam shield a single target and it will help them live. So I spam shielded myself and I lived somehow. I think I had a file proc too. But always nice to throw in a grip here. There's no global, so I'm really just not going to carry the suitcases. I'm not going to do it. But I feel like gripping someone right after they pick up a suitcase to the chute, that's essentially the same thing as carrying it yourself, if you ask me. So I like to throw in a grip. I watch for someone far away to pick it up and grip them over. So I'm not engaging yet. I do want full mana. I don't know how this is going to go, but it's usually kind of like a gauntlet. So I need mana after that boss. But that was a really good mailroom. Rule of thumb is always delay your spells. And save the Warlock on that one out of the frontal. He would have gotten smacked. But with barrier, I didn't have barrier on mailroom. I did in my last video, but delay barrier so it hits the back half of fan mail, and then the front end damage of the money order. Same with boon. Delay it so that the eruption happens after the money order. And yeah, I learned last time that you never want to be caught off your mount here. So I'm definitely going to mount. And I have boon, which is great to use here. You get a lot of value. Oh, and I'm off the mount. So I'm targeting the thick guy back there. He has tons of health for my schism. And he's getting my single target of the blast. But I'm over here Nova-ing the larger group. The warrior went down. I'd have to rewatch that. I don't know if it was my fault or not. I probably could have healed him, but yeah, I don't know what happened. Warlock is dying. This is a little crazy. Okay, so in my defense, I was trying to pain sup him sooner. It just didn't happen. Also, you can punt, like you see there, to get the guys off him, so punt them away. Grip him a little bit to safety. And then also I would say, like, where was the tank? So we'd all have to definitely rewatch that to see what happened, but I was trying to pain sup him, it just didn't go off. Thankfully he had a seed. Oh yeah, and we're getting crazy here, so I went ahead and dropped Rapture just to make sure we get through it. You can see on my grid too there where my values are. Schism and Seer. It would have been nice to get a Schism Seer off a little sooner before those guys died. It didn't happen though. And you do gotta watch for dispels on tank in that little gauntlet. Yeah, I always try and dispel at like 3 or 4 of anything. And it's always best to dispel right after a new stack is refreshed, because it gives the biggest window of no incoming dot damage. I hope that made sense. Gripped him again out of the frontal. Might not have hit him, but I wanted to grip him anyway. So I definitely could have schismed there at least. Didn't need a full cooldown, but a schism would have been just fine. I didn't. I always turn my camera vertical. And my extra action button keybind is very similar to my dismount. So it makes that sequence really easy. And I always want to run over and drop a fear there. If those throw drinks get off, they can really fuck someone up if they hit the same person. So P.O.S.T on the Warlock, I saw him Q. This first round is always boon. And with the haste from the instrument, we get our preferred rotation, as I call it. Nova Blast, Nova Blast. It's really great for damage, really great for healing. Always want to do that when you can. So this next round is always Fiend. You want to make sure you target the, what is he called? Security. So I have that weak aura to highlight him because he's the strongest guy. You always want to target him first for the spectrometer. I spread all my dots with penance. Shadow Fiend, Schism, Mindseer. And that's a pretty standard Fiend rotation. If you can atone your tank last, right before a Schism, that's best, because you don't have to break from damaging during Schism to have tank heals. God, I'm really struggling with my words today. I think y'all are understanding. Pretty stoned, to be honest. Ooh, ouch. Okay, so he's bad. And next we have the boss, and we have Boon. Don't want to miss our preferred rotation while we got it. Opening with a dot. Schism, boon. Blast, Nova, Blast, Nova, Blast, Nova. And I think when you come back over to the instrument, you just have to get the first one to refresh the buff. To be honest, I should probably look into that. I don't know. But we just had P.I. come up. Yikes. Goes to the Frost Mage. So I could have given it to the Warlock or the Warrior, but just personally, I don't like giving it to someone outside of their cooldown window. The Mage was the only one in the window. And I love gripping someone out of the way of that frontal. It's just the RNG of it is no one was actually in the way, but I still wanted to grip someone. Grip the Warlock. Yeah, so again, I got the first drum hit. See, I could have gripped the lock there if it wasn't on cooldown. I think just the first drum hit is all you need. If someone knows that answer, please let me know, because I will probably forget to look it up. Okay, so looking at our progress, all trash is completed. All we have is one final boss. Our warrior is doing really good on the overall damage. Throwing a Mind Soothe right there. Fade Mount, one of my favorite macros. Sneak right on by, no one sees you. And I think I P.I. the warrior here. Let's see. Sometimes I like to just reward, if you will, the person who's performing best on the meters for final boss. So let's see what I do. But I have Ruby, Fiend, and Boon. So this is a double cooldown dump, banking on both cooldown windows getting affected by Ruby. Oh, another grip for sport. Okay, open with a dot. We have the tank atoned only. More damage that way. Shadow Fiend, Schism, Boon. Nova Nova Blast. You don't want to break from Boon even once. And you get that final global in there from the haste. And yeah, I didn't notice this until watching the replay, but for the first 20 seconds of the fight we had sated, and we all popped our cooldowns on pull. So coincidentally, it looks like my P.I. lined up perfectly when sated fell. And when I gave it to the lock, it was a partial miss with the lock's cooldown window because he had already popped. So it's definitely something you like everyone needs to pay attention to. If it is a lust pull, you want to save your cooldowns for lust, because we could have had all cooldowns rolling in lust with P.I., but we all kind of jumped the gun. And as it applies to discipline, I missed out on a Blast Nova rotation. Definitely want to hold for lust. And this guy's almost dead. Always want to keep the dots rolling, obviously. Always want to keep Schism rolling. And this is where I was like, uh-oh, they're committing. So we're over here. I have all defensives. It's not going to hit us, but I was like totally golden. Oh, I think it does hit us. So I barrier, I wall, and paints up myself. And uh-oh, about to get a 2-stack. Okay, so yep. In a case like that, it was about dead. I just needed to live. So I dropped all my defensives on myself and barely tickled. So yeah, alright, that was a 23 Tazavesh Streets of Wonder. I think this one will be a lot better of an example than my other streets I'm going to post this week. Yep, this was a total pug. I don't think I played perfectly. Looking at the avoidable damage, I did pretty well compared to others, but it could have been lower. And I think I PI'd a Frost Mage too a couple times, which was questionable, but I just don't like PIing someone outside of a cooldown window. But we also saw an example, a really cool example, a rare example, where I PI'd a bear tank. So in a large pull where they have Incarn, it's often the right play to PI them. They're going to do more damage than the group. And I think it's really fun for them too. They don't get that experience too often. But you have to do it selectively. It's only in large pulls with Incarn rolling. So I think that was a really cool example of using PI alternatively. And it was definitely the right play. You can see I'm posting it there in Party. Really fun to do. Yeah, what else happened? I mean, yeah, I think that's about it. Pretty standard run. Nothing went wrong. I don't even think I had a death. Always want to wait for lust windows for boon if you can. You always want that preferred rotation when possible. Oh yeah, that reminds me. My grip game could have been better. I've been feeling a little bit rusty. But grip is really powerful this season to avoid damage. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please ask. I do pretty good about getting back to them. And until next time, Disc.